This is President Biden this morning finally addressing what is going on these college campuses in support of Hamas and intimidating Jews and supporters of Israel.
There's the right to protest, but not the right to cause chaos. People have the right to get an education, the right to get a degree, the right to walk across the campus safely without fear of being attacked. But let's be clear about this as well. There should be no place on any campus, no place in America for anti-Semitism or threats of violence against Jewish students. There is no place for hate speech or violence of any kind, whether it's anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, or discrimination against Arab Americans or Palestinian Americans. It's simply wrong. There's no place for racism in America.
Okay, nothing about these riots that I've seen is Islamophobic or had anything to do with Islamophobia. It didn't have to do with discriminating against Arabs or Arab students or Palestinian Americans. In fact, they decided they were going to protest and call for the destruction of a people group from the river to the sea, destroy the Jewish state of Israel, destroy the Jews, and attack the Jews who are here. And by the way, this didn't stem from some kind of Islamophobic statement or movement. This stemmed from an attack by Hamas on October 7th, which was horrific. So Joe Biden didn't have to say that. Like, there's a bunch of anti-Muslim leaders out there that are, causing them to do this. They are making this decision on their own voluntarily, and a lot of these protesters aren't even Muslims. They're just radical leftists.
It's important to note that he finally issued a statement condemning violent protests throughout the United States. That's good. He issued a statement arguing that the United States should protect our rights of freedom of speech. But there is, in many instances, if you look at the speech carefully, an argument that he is arguing for moral equivalence between what is happening to Jewish Americans and Jewish students, and then comparing that to what is happening to Muslim and Arab students, which is clearly a false equivalence that most people can see through.
What happened after Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer said that Netanyahu needed to go, or that maybe the response to October 7th was too strong? Which, how dare they, by the way, say that? Look at how the U.S. responds. We're attacked. We wipe out your entire country.
Yeah.
But Israel, now look what happened, Logan. It emboldened those the protest didn't begin at this level of extreme level until the Bidens and Schumers of the world, not the Omars, the mainstream politicians of the world, started coming out and condemning the Jewish state, which they would have never done before. And then suddenly these rioters felt like, we're going to take it to the next level. We've got the support of the government.
It took 9 days for President Biden to speak out about this as it kind of escalated. Honestly, he's speaking out now when it's maybe starting to de-escalate a little bit, when you have the NYPD already going in and taking care of business.
There's no Islamophobia going on here. That's not what led to these protests. I mean, the bad actor was Hamas. They invaded Israel October 7th. They took hostages. They still have hostages. They killed children. They killed pregnant women. They broadcast it. Okay, it was the over 1,000 people killed in Israel, the most Jews killed in one day since the Holocaust. Then Israel responded to protect itself, and these protesters began. It was Hamas that began the violence, not Islamophobia, but yet he had to condemn that, right? And he had to condemn, hate against Palestinians. Which, by the way, even after October 7th in the United States, that's not how we act. It's not how we acted after September 11th either. If people remember, there was a great concern that there would be all this violence against Muslims, and there wasn't, because Americans see other Americans as bigger than just what your background may be. But he had to throw that in there because they are so scared politically that they're going to lose the youth vote, which goes all the way up to about 30, 35 years old. It's considered a young voter, if they look like they're too pro-Israel. So they're walking this very fine line, and these riots have really hurt their ability to stay silent, because President Trump just came out and said it very directly. Take a listen.
And just so you understand, this is the radical left. This is a movement from the left, not from the right. The right is not your problem. Despite what law enforcement likes to say, the FBI director said that he worries about the right. No, don't worry about the right. The right's fine. Worry about the left.
I mean, you do think about that, Logan. I've seen Christopher Wray say that so many times, testifying, the FBI the director, that it's right-wing violence that keeps him up at night, or the threat of
domestic. What are the
domestic violent extremists?
Yeah, domestic violent extremists.
Which, by the way, these people are too.
Yeah, but they won't lump them into that.
No, that's your conservative, right-wing style. And yes, you could point to January 6th, right, as this bad event. But what about the riots we saw from Antifa, the riots we saw when Black Lives Matter basically got overtaken by riots, and now the riots that we're seeing on these college campuses? As President Trump said, this all is based in the left.
Yeah,
these are hardcore leftist movements that have gone violent.
I do like that President Trump and some of these, and just seeing the visual of this, seeing who it is protesting, has started to bring it back into reality for people, that the real fight that's happening on the streets is beyond whether you agree with the government in Israel, whether you agree with how they're treating people. It honestly is a purely leftist, racist moment that is happening. Not only racist, it is against Christians, it's against Jews, it's against anyone that doesn't fall in line with their own really incredibly ignorant rhetoric and narrative that doesn't make any sense on paper. That the far left would be in support of Hamas or be in support of the laws that are put place in the Palestinian state, even if it was not run by Hamas. Because we've all, those of us who have been there.
LGBT for Hamas.
Right.
What do you'd be executed in these countries.
It's completely illogical, and for some reason we've just had to accept that it's completely illogical, and they can't see past themselves. Confronted on the streets, how do you feel about this? You know the honor killings that are happening. You know all of this is still happening there.
Women alone.
Whatever. They don't answer. It's silence because they really don't know. Either they don't know, or like you said, they're being paid to be there. There's a lot of different reasons why these encampments are happening.
We already saw a wave of university presidents go. I think we're about to see another wave.
Yeah, and that wave was they're chanting death to Jews, but not a specific Jew, so therefore it's protected under our Harvard.
And then look what happened.
Right.
So that's what I say.
Some of these education places are going, we can't believe this happened. And you're like, okay, let's take you back a week when you were like, oh, they'll be fine. Let's take it back a month. Let's take it back 6 months, where every time you let it go because you felt like, well, they're doing the right thing. They're being able to speak their voice. They're being able to do it. And then all of a sudden it got to a point where they're overtaking a college campus, and eventually you got to call the cops to clear them out because that's where everyone gets to eventually.
Yeah, it goes to the point, like I said, with the politicians, when you have Joe Biden start condemning Israel, and Chuck Schumer, for the first time ever, is calling for, you might not like Netanyahu's politics, but you do that quietly when it's your ally. You don't call for them to leave in the middle of a war. That's up to the Israelis. Their Knesset can do that. Their actions can take that. If you believe that, keep it behind closed doors. If they truly are an ally, don't. But for political reasons, they're going to toe this line, Logan, as long as they can, that they're somehow not fully behind Israel in Israel's response to the atrocities of October 7th.